Hi everyone, welcome back to Russian. In the last few videos, we finished up our vowels in Russian, so naturally today we will do our consonants. And I just want to keep this really informal and just have just a general discussion instead of rules because, consonants, there are a lot more of them, and so it's just better to look at it on a wider, sort of broader scale. So we're just going to mention some things about how consonants work in Russian and how certain consonants are spelled and certain patterns. So we're going to use our dictionary a lot today. So some things we're going to talk about just to make a quick list here. Let's choose a nice color. So we're going to talk about the K versus the KH. A lot of people think that, KH is a very trademark kind of spelling of Russian, so we'll discover the truth about that. We'll talk about the letter C, how often it's used, if it's used, when it's used, that sort of thing. And then we're going to talk about SH, we're going to talk about SS versus just the S, and we'll talk about V and Z and how common they are in Russian, and just talk about a little bit other little things like double letters in Russian. So let's just get started. First thing I want to talk about is K versus KH. So let's clear the page. So the first thing which we mentioned in the first video of Russian, is that Russian is not a Romance language. So that means it doesn't come from Latin, and it's not French, Italian, Spanish, Portuguese, or Romanian, so it doesn't follow those Latin rules. Now if you remember, you can go back to the Latin video and see that Latin does not use the letter K at all. It kind of doesn't exist in its alphabet, and if it does have a K and it's from Latin, it must have passed through another language. So naturally, all the Romance languages don't use K. For the K sound, they typically use C, or they use QU, or QUE, or some other kind of spelling to not use a K. So remember, Russian is not a Romance language, so we're not going to have any problem using the K. K is actually very, very common in Russian, and that's a big note to make, that the letter K is really common in Russian. It definitely starts a lot of words, it ends a lot of words, and you find it in the middle of words a lot. Now, one thing we said that K is very common, but KH is not a bad spelling either. Again, people always think of KH as sort of being a typical Russian spelling. So let's do this. Let's go to the dictionary and see how many Russian words there are that have KH. Hopefully there won't be too many. And whenever that's the case, you can always look it up. Or look those words up and learn those words so that you don't have to memorize or you don't have to think about the rule. So we have etymologies Russian, and we want the word to have a KH in there somewhere. Okay, and then now we search, and we're going to see all the Russian words that have KH, and if we learn all of those, then you can pretty much be sure that everything else is going to have just a K. So that'll be a pretty simple rule. Okay, almost done here. Now, one thing to notice is that for the K, like I said, it ends a lot of words, like Gopak, which is G-O-P-A-K. Also, whenever you have the key at the end, like Droshky, it's usually going to be a K-Y at the end. So that's another thing to notice. So here we are, only 12 entries. You can see here, only 12 words have the KH and are from Russian. So we can just go through these. The first one is Abkhaz. It's a kind of people, a Georgian people. And when I used to compete, I don't think they asked these kinds of words that had a certain people definition, but you never know. I mean, that might be something new. So always be on the lookout for that. So that's I think that's an eligible word. Abkhaz has a KH there. It's from Russian. This one is a variant, so just make sure you know one of them, and you should be good. There's 3 different ways to spell that, so that doesn't really count. Baruxi, great word that has KH. Okay, Baruxi is a great word. It's an African hound. So we can look at what that is. It's obviously, see if I can find it here. It's a hunting dog. Ooh, there's a picture. That looks interesting. That looks really interesting. But that's an African, that's a Baruxi. So that's a great word. Great picture there too. Here, another word that's a kind of people, so I'm not sure if those are asked, but Baduka. Here the schwa is a U. We discussed the schwa in the last video, so you can go back and look at that if you want to refresh on that. But the ka is spelled a KH here, so that's something. Here's another one, Bukharan, and there's also Bokharan or Bokharan. Again, it's relating to that place. It's a city and state in Russian Central Asia. So again, that has KH. Here's one with a variant, but both of them have KH, Dukabor. It's a good word, so learn that one. Let's see, you're almost done here. Klist, it's a good word. A member of a secret Russian Christian sect. And then you have Klisti or Klists, and that has KH. That's at the beginning, so that could be something interesting. Could definitely be there or be asked in a B. Here's another one with a variant. One variant doesn't have the KH, so not a big deal there. This one though, it comes from this word that we just looked at, but this one has a KH, so it's good to know this one. So this one is pronounced Kalkaz or Kalkaz, and this is Kalkaznik or Kalkaznik. So here the KH would be important because the other two variants don't show up in this word. Makarka, it's a great Russian word, of course, tobacco grown in the Ukraine. Again, this K with an underline is the guttural K sound, and it's pronounced like it comes from your throat, like at the very back. So it's pronounced Makarka, very typical sound in German, but here it's spelled with a KH, so that's something good to know. Here's another one, Safkaz. Two ways to spell it, but they both have KH. And the final word, Paska. Paska has KHA, a molded Russian dessert. So again, that's a great word that has KH. So if you know all these words, then pretty much you know all the Russian words that have KH. Some other ones are I don't know why they didn't show up in the list, but if we go to basic search, here's one. Chekhovian, it comes from a name. So again, with names, if you know the name of the person has a KH in it, you should be good. You just add the IA in here to Chekhov. And another one, again, I think it's a name, right? Stakhanov. So you have Stakhanovite or Stakhanovite. Again, these are names, so that's why they didn't show up in the etymology, but they're Russian names, so these ones have KH too. So if we know all of those around, let's say around 14, 15 words, then everything else in Russian is pretty much going to use a K for the K sound, even though some words can start with the C. So why don't we go ahead and do that real fast? We can look up, here, let's do this. Let's just do etymology includes Russian. We're going to get all the Russian words, all of them. Scroll down to C. And one thing to notice, there are a few words, see, like this, come from French but have stemmed from Russian. It's going to use a C here because, French doesn't use K. It's a Romance language. We've talked about that. So in these cases, you have to look at that. So there's actually not too many words that have CA. There's around like 7 of them here. Maybe a little more than 7. Cancrinite, this is a mineral. Comes from another name. Carburan, see, here's one. Comes from German. So there's very few you can see here that start with CA. CE is going to be pronounced se. CH is very, 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 very common in Russian. CH is very common. Can't stress that. You can see that actually if you go through. There's a lot of CH words. And then CI is going to be se. Here we have one with clout. So it has Russian in it. It's not just exclusively from Russian. But there are a few words here like commissariat. And communism, they're going to associate that with Russia. But if we have like Corsac, there are very few words that do have the C for the K sound. So it's not just a K, it can be a C, but it's C is not as common. You can definitely go through this list of words that have C in it for the K sound and learn all of those. So if you learn all of these ones, you learn all the ones with KH, then you can pretty much be sure that everything else will have a K. So I hope that wasn't too confusing. Yeah, there's just, cosmonaut. Cosmo means like universe. So again, that's gonna have a C. So there are instances of logic that are used here. So hopefully that wasn't too confusing. Just spend some time with a dictionary and you can figure out the patterns of this. And if you ever have a question, just shoot me an email. So that's that for the k sound. One other thing we will talk about, we said CH is very common. We see that. There's lots of words with CH. And this is an interesting word. It's pronounced chocolavite. But look at the spelling. It's CHKA. It's a mineral. It's an interesting word. It comes from a city, city kind of region. So I thought that was very interesting. But words like this, chiska, um, chudik, these are all great words that use CH. So CH is very common in Russian, but so is SH. SH is very common in like the middle of words. You can see that as you go here. Here's one. Feldscher. Okay, so SH is very common. So definitely don't be scared to use SH. When we talk about SS and S, the SS versus the S, there are a few words. Let's see. There are a few words like here, kvass that have both. Okay, you can use the SS or the S. So typically that's not a problem. And another example is kumis, something you've probably heard of, to drink. There's so many variants here, but you can have two S's or one S. So don't worry about the SS. In Russian, we can actually do a search if we want to. Let's see, all the Russian, oof, what's wrong? Alright, all the words that have SS and the etymology is Russian. See what we end up with. Russian itself has SS. This is pretty ironic. But that shouldn't be a problem. Usually you can use the S in the middle. All other consonants are pretty much the same, like B, M, N, P, R. They're just going to, be regular and nothing to worry about there. So we're almost done here. Let's see what we get. After this, we'll look at V and Z. They're very common in Russian. Just a heads up about that. Okay, 33. Remember, a lot of these words have variants. But again, let's see. This one has one. See, a lot of them have variants. Like I said, the SS can be replaced with an S most of the time. Here's one. Cherkess. That's a good one. You might want to look into that. It means Circassian, which is another group of people. But, there aren't, like I said, these two have SS and S. So you can always go through these and see which ones. These are pretty easy words. Russianize, Russify, Russism. So again, it shouldn't be too hard. Again, here's another one where you've got it both ways, S or SS. So as long as you know one, you'll be fine. Okay, so that's that for S, S, and S. Usually in the middle of the word, it's going to be an S, just an S. So you can always pretty much stay safe with that. Stay safe with that one. V and Z are common in Russian. I don't know if you noticed here. These are all the Russian words. Let's go back. These are all the Russian words. But V and Z are very common everywhere. In the middle of the word, at the ends of the words. Here you can see how many Z words there are. Lots of them. Okay. So Z is common and V is very common as well. A V right here. We see a lot of those. So, and they're not just at the beginning, they can also be in the middle. So don't be afraid to use those. And the last thing I want to talk about is the double letters. In Russian, some words do have double letters. If you go through this list, you can see there aren't too many with double letters. Not a whole lot, but there are certainly words like Safian, okay, a kind of leather that has two F's. There's Promyshlenik, which we've seen already in a previous Russian video. There's two N's there. And there's also like a word you might be more familiar with, step. Okay, it has two P's in there. So there are words like that. And the only way to figure those out is to kind of visualize what it would look like if there weren't double letters. If there weren't double letters, step would be, let's write it here. Step would be STEPE, and that just doesn't look like it would be pronounced step. It looks like it would be pronounced steep, right? It doesn't look right. So we kind of need that extra P. So this is wrong. Same thing with Safian. If we write it with one F, SAF, I-A-N, it looks like it would be pronounced Saphian, right? Not really Saphian. I mean, it could be, but it looks better with an FF. So use that intuition because this is wrong too. So there are a few words that have double letters. You can look at those. Not too common, but if they do, they usually do make sense. Okay, so that's it for Russian consonants. Like I said before, everything else is pretty much the same, such as B, T, R. They're going to be spelled how they sound in English. And we've talked about the vowels, so we've pretty much learned all the letter rules for Russian. And in the next video, we'll use all these rules by visiting our 10 words, our 10 sample words that we did in the first video, and look at those and apply these rules and see if they work. Okay, so thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye!